Alright, today I'm messing with my Ford and I thought I would share some things that I've been working on that might help other people because I've had good luck with them. So here it is. So I got a 2002 Ford Excursion 7.3 and I have done the 3G swap to it. And in order to do that, you got to get a 3G alternator off of like a Ford Ranger or something, and I think even the 7.3, I'm not sure, but it bolts up exactly the same. You got to change the pulley out, so you can take your old pulley off of your 6G alternator and slap it on there. Don't mind this, I fucking broke the case when I was trying to tighten down the bolt because I had to stick a screwdriver in there. I still have the piece, so I'm gonna like JB weld it back on, but that's not the fucking point. In order to make the 3G work, you gotta have the 3G plug. This wire obviously stays connected to this. It's probably like the turn on switch or something. And your green wire, see, this is my old plug. Your green wire, see, I cut my old plug at the green wire and it attaches to the green wire. Now this yellow wire is your sensor wire. I have that ran to the positive post, and that's how you get it to work. This is the next step. I'm gonna get to that in a second. So the benefits of doing a 3G swap is that you can get like a 130 amp alternator. I mean, you could use the 95 or the 105 or whatever too, but you can get more amperage. It's a one-wire alternator, so it's pretty much like self-regulated, so you don't have to worry about voltage issues. They're a lot more reliable than the 6G alternators. I'm sure you guys know that, like, if you got 99 to 03, 73, or even 6.0s and stuff like that, they like to crap alternators about once a year. So that's just what I've heard. I haven't experienced that. I never got to that point. That's why I did the 3G swap. But I don't like unreliability. And I like the ability to control alternators too, or, you know, anything like that. But see, I had that alternator on there. And one day I had some zero gauge wire running from my positive post over to this post on my first battery over here. Now, the wire that comes off of the post originally, it goes down into the harness. It goes in here somewhere, I don't know. And I'm guessing it comes over here, probably through these wires or something. So it comes over here. And then this wire goes over here. It connects this battery to that battery. But factory, there's a wire that comes from over here. And it goes back to... Hold on. There was a junction box here. And when I first got this thing... Well, not when I first got it. Probably about a year later, I was working on it. And I was redoing some wiring. And I noticed this fucking thing was all rusty and shit. And this wire right here connects and it goes into the harness. So that probably feeds the PCM and the IDM for injection stuff and all that. So that was no good. So I cleaned up the connection on the wire that goes to the computer. And I took one of these wires and I bolted it to it. I mean, there's probably a better way that you can do it, but I like to live my life like MacGyver and just use what I got and see if it works. And if it works, I don't fuck with it for a long time until I'm bored and I want to make shit perfect, or I just leave it alone. So this is providing better current. I think this is probably about like a 2 gauge to the IDM and the PCM from this wire. But what I was getting at was I had a wire that was on there. I had a zero gauge. I was using it. One night my my lug snapped on my main cable that goes down to the starter, which I think is like a 1/0 or a 2/0. It's pretty thick. And I didn't have the means to go to a store because it was already late. I mean, I went and I think I got a lug, but I didn't have a crimper and some other factors. So I just used that wire, and I used like a block connector. I cut off my old lug, stripped it, stuck it into the block, stuck my 0 gauge into the block, ran it to my starter, hooked it up. I was able to get my truck started again. It got me home. But then I removed that wire that was connecting it was connecting from the alternator to the battery, which was delivering direct amperage and voltage to the wire that actually goes to the PCM. And then shortly after that, because I removed that, then I started having issues to where my truck would cut out in acceleration, and eventually it would start dying, and then it didn't want to start at all until it cooled down. So that had me thinking it was an H-pop issue, which I've already fucking ruled out because somebody had a fusion tuner on my truck, and it seems like they left the hot tune on there. So sometimes my truck chugs after hard acceleration and then it goes away, and when you come off the highway. But I found out that when I'm coming off the highway, if I just turn the car off and then turn it back on in neutral, it just goes back to idling like it's fine. And if it was a H-pop issue, I think it would still be trying to catch up on fuel. So I ruled that out. But since I had removed that 0 gauge and I started having dying issues, I troubleshooted it. I put a new wire back on there, and it solved the issue. So I was like, cool. It's like wasn't getting enough voltage to my PCM, because the way I explained it earlier, with the factory wire going like in the harness around here to this battery to that battery, this is like last in line for receiving charge, but it's first in line for pulling voltage for the computers. So this extra wire is pretty important. I just got this in Menards for like $10 or something temporarily. So now that we got that all squared away with the whole voltage issue and stuff, on to my next trick. Okay, so when it gets hot outside, this alternator, this 3G alternator, likes to charge at like maybe like a maximum of like 14 while cruising, like around 1500 to 2000 RPM. And when it stops, it wants to rest around like 13.5 or so. So what I know from car audio and my experience is dealing with GM one-wire alternators that come on like LS motors and stuff like that, the old DR44s. You can basically stick those on anything, and you just got to have the turn-on wire. But you can also take that sense wire, and you could put a diode in it. I think it's either like a 5K or a 2K diode in line with the sense wire, and it'll trick the alternator into thinking that the voltage is lower than it is, so it produces more current than it would by about like 0.7 to 1 volt. Okay, so I had that diode on my alternator, and when it's idling at about 600 RPM, you see about 13.5, just because the alternator is not spinning enough to even crank out good output voltage. But when you get just idling up a little bit or even cruising, usually see about like somewhere between like 14.9 and maybe even 15.3. If it's cold outside, I've seen it jump up to like 15.6. Now if you're running like regular lead acid batteries, that might be an issue for you, and you might want to go with a potentiometer, which I can also make a separate video on, because I will make a harness for a pot meter that I can put inside the dash, and that will allow you to turn the knob and allow you to manipulate the voltage to whatever voltage you want. But I'm still in the trial and error phase with this alternator because I'm not too familiar with them. But last night, I noticed that my alternator was not charging at all. So I was like, what the heck? I pulled over in a Hy-Vee parking lot to inspect, and the diode had burnt up. So it was seeing too much heat from that 15 plus voltage. So I discussed a couple things with chat and confirmed my theory was correct, that if I add multiple diodes in series, not parallel, not positive to negative like in a line, but just all of them side by side twisted together, then it's the same ohms load, but it's just like the capacitor goes from being, or the diode goes from being this big to being about this big, and so do the wires that connect it and stuff. So it should dissipate heat easier. So I'm going to show you. It's not hard. You don't have to do it fancy. I mean, the better you do it, the better results you'll probably see long term. But like I said, I'm kind of like MacGyver, so I just like to mess with stuff and see how it works. And then eventually, one day, I'll probably do this over again and solder all these connections and have a wire that comes off of it, both sides, solder that, put some heat shrink around it, put some quick connects on it, so that way even if it goes bad, I can just disconnect it, make a new one, and then slap it back in there, maybe even have some extras. But I live my life on the edge, so we just twisting wires and putting electrical tape on them right now. So I got 3, and you want to make sure when you get these, and I can track down exactly these diodes are and provide a link probably, but you want to make sure that the diode, well, you'll know if it's backwards because it won't actually let your alternator charge. So if your alternator is not charging after you install some diodes on your sense wire on your 3G swap, then it's probably backwards. But the gray part goes to the connector, and then that lets it flow to the positive. So I'm going to wrap this up. I've already tested it. It sees about 15.1, 15.3 at cruising speed, or at higher idle. So it's actually doing better at not jumping too high than the old one was. Oh my fucking God. I'm at my buddy's house and his dog never shuts the fuck up, dude. If he can see something, dude, he's fucking barking, and it's ridiculous. So I'm going to wrap that up. I'm going to start it up so I can show you the charging voltage, and that'll be it. That's about all I can help you with today. Don't know if you can see that. It's fucking... It says 12.7 right now. Now here's something I want to tell you about my setup that may be different than everybody else's. I decided that I wanted to run AGM batteries just because, I don't know, because I wanted to, and they were available and they were bigger and better than what was an option at the time. And like I said, I have a big car audio background, so it ain't nothing for somebody just to switch out all their batteries for AGMs for no reason. if you're gonna be running car audio. But They're 100 amp hours. They're deep cycles. So they can typically take a higher charge a little bit better. You know, typically around like 14.8 to low 15. Sometimes they'll even take like up to 16 volts depending on if it's like a group charge or something like that. So my battery seeing 15 volts on a regular basis isn't that big of a deal. Now if you have lead acid batteries, it could possibly cook them a little bit, so you might want to consider a potentiometer, but this is just for people that are into like heavily modifying their vehicles anyway. And I'm just getting started. Like, I'm still playing around with this thing. I really took nothing too serious because it's a long-term project for me, because I've gotten in the habit of, you know, I'm like, oh, I want to do this, and then I'll fucking end up taking apart a whole car and fucking redoing everything, and it'll only take me like 2-3 months, but I'll be working on it for like 8 to 10 hours a day the whole time, and it becomes a job, and then I just want to get it done, and then when I get it done, I want to sell it, and I'm just like, so I can start another one, and I want to get out of that process. So this one I've kind of just been doing like the bare minimum and trying to keep it on the road so I can drive it and enjoy it for what it is, because I want to have this thing for a long time. So what if it goes through a little ghetto phase where I fucking MacGyver a bunch of stuff and do a bunch of funny things to it. Like, I got house speakers in my rear door right now, if that don't tell you nothing, but that's all for fun too, because I used to fiberglass door panels and wrap them in fabric, make speaker grills, resin them, paint them, clear coat them, all that stuff. So I am completely capable of building a full door for my truck. But I had house speakers laying around, and I was like, you know, it'd be cool if I put some house speakers in my truck. That's besides the point, though. I will try to get some info on a potentiometer too, because that's probably more practical for you guys that just run normal batteries. So hope you enjoyed this little bit of information. It may be useless to me, but it sure helped me a lot, and it made my truck run a lot better. So if you guys can take steps to get to the same place that I'm at, then more power to you.